Hello and welcome to the Learning Love podcast. This is where we learn what love is and how to live a life of love in every area. My name is Dr. Mark A. Hicks, author of the book Learning Love. Love can be practical, tangible, and a realistic life for everyone, regardless of your relationship experiences so far. So thank you for joining me as we spend some time learning love. Love is the answer. Now all we have to do is explore all the questions. And today's question is, what about peace? Part of our quest for a life of love is to find that place where our relationships are peaceful, are fulfilling, our life is peaceful and fulfilling, that we are able to be at home and at work and wherever we are and experience a life of peace. Doesn't that sound nice? Peace and contentment, a tranquility about us, even in times that are more difficult. We're going to experience ups and downs in life, but how do we find peace in the midst of all of that? Well, there are some things that can help, but let's be realistic. We're not going to be able to make everything right in the world. There's going to be problems. We as an individual can't fix all the world's problems. By joining together, we can solve a lot of them. As people work together in groups, then yes, we can fix some things, but we as an individual cannot fix all the world's problems. There's going to be things that happen. Life is temporary, and the reality is there's going to be deaths in our family. We're going to experience hardships in life. There's going to be setbacks. We know this. How do we find peace in the midst of it, in realistic terms? When we know we have to face the troubles of life, how do we find a life of peace? Well, there are some things that we can do that can help us. And the first thing is to have that idea of realistic peace. Don't set your goals too high. Everything in life's not going to be tranquility all the time. But that doesn't mean it has to be constant turmoil. There can be an equilibrium between the two. There can be a life of moderate peace. Perfect peace in a difficult world is not possible. There's going to be struggles. But that doesn't mean we have to be in constant turmoil, always upset, always struggling, always fighting against the difficulties of life. There is a place we can get to that is a realistic peace, something that is achievable. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to give you two things you can do that are realistic and achievable so that you can find that realistic area of peace where everything's not perfect. That's not going to happen. But also we give up the turmoil, the constant grinding of anxiety that comes when we are outside that level of peace. There are a couple of things we can do to get there, and today that's what we're going to talk about. So let's get started with the first thing you can do to bring more peace into your life. So the first thing you can do to bring a realistic peace into your life is something you've heard me talk about a lot if you follow me on a regular basis, and that is give up the word should. Should is a disastrous word. Should will drive you crazy. It will torment you at every turn. If you constantly find yourself using the word should, you are probably also finding yourself in a constant state of turmoil and anxiety and frustration. When we let should be our guide, we are going down a road of turmoil. Should leads us into frustration. Should leads us into anxiety. Should leads us into anger. Because it's easy to get caught up in what should be. We look at what people are doing at work and we know they are not doing it right, and we get so frustrated saying they should know what they're doing. They should do this correctly the first time. Why am I having to deal with this? And we get so upset at the shoulds that we spend a lot of energy that could be used fixing the problem. And that's the key. It's not that we're going to deny reality. Yeah, they probably should know what they're doing, but obviously they don't. And so we can spend our time and our energy frustrated about what should be, or we could spend that same time and energy addressing the reality of the problem. We all have limits on our time and energy. And if we spend it digging into the frustration of the shoulds, we don't have as much time or energy to fix the actual problem. Give up should and deal with is. The problem is. And this is how we're going to deal with it. It's not that we're a robot. Of course, we have emotions. But when we allow those emotions to take us down this road of should, we are wasting a lot of energy. We are spending a lot of our energy in that frustration that things aren't as we wish they were. Instead of languishing in this world of should, saying they should know how to do their jobs right the first time, why don't we ask the question, why don't they know this already? Where was the breakdown in communication that they didn't know this? Or if they did know it and just didn't do it right, where's the problem there? How can we get this fixed? And fixing problems brings about peace. It is a feeling of peace when a problem is fixed. It doesn't mean we don't have problems. It means when we address them, we have a realistic chance at peace, at contentment, of the chance to say, all right, that was an ordeal to deal with, but we dealt with it. And there's a sense of calm knowing that problem is now fixed. The problem with should is that even when we fix the problem, we can still be languishing in that realm of, that shouldn't have happened. I shouldn't have had to deal with all that. And we are spending, again, a lot of time, a lot of energy on that frustration, even when the problem is fixed. Railing against the injustice that we had to address that problem that we shouldn't have even had to address. That's a lot of energy. That's a lot of time spent that doesn't have to be. If we want a realistic peace, give up should and deal with what is. Problems come along. Are they fixable? If they're not, well, then we're going to have to adjust our attitude. We're going to have to learn to deal with stuff that we just don't want to have to deal with. But railing against the should isn't going to happen. And if the problem is fixable, then fix it. And accept the peace, the contentment that comes with fixing it. I love the quote from Maya Angelou that says, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. This is a pathway to peace. And what we're really talking about here as we give up the word should is living a life of acceptance. Accept what is. That doesn't mean we can't change it, but accept what is. Ask the question, am I content with this? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, then the next question is, can I change it? If we can't change it, then it can't be changed. We have to learn to live with it. And that may require grief, that may require some adjustment, it may require some counseling, it may require something. But we can make adjustments to deal with things that can't be changed and still live a life of peace. And if it can be changed, then deal with it, change it, fix it, and live with the contentment that you fixed that problem. When we accept what is, changing what we can, we give ourselves a chance at a realistic peace. Remember the famous words of the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Give up the word should, and you are well on your way to a realistic life of peace. But there's another thing you can do. So let's talk about that. If you want to live a realistic life of peace, you're going to need healthy relationships to do it. There's no escaping that relationships are a big part of our life. At home, at work, in every area of our life, it's about the people that are in our life and how we are nurturing those relationships. If your relationships are in turmoil, your life is going to be in turmoil. If your relationships are healthy, they are solid, they are happy, then you're going to have a much better chance at a life of peace. Even during bad times, even when circumstances are difficult, when we have healthy relationships, we are happy in our relationships, there is a sense of peace and calm that comes with that, even at difficult times, because we know they have our back and we have theirs. We stand shoulder to shoulder to deal with the problems of life. If there's a problem at work, but you have a great relationship with your coworkers, it can actually be pretty exciting to roll up your sleeves and get to work with the people you trust to fix that problem. If you're struggling in some area of your life, but you have your family rallied around you, there is a sense of peace, a sense of calm, contentment, tranquility that comes even in the midst of problems. So we know we can't make life perfect, but we can have a realistic life of peace when we have good relationships, when we have healthy, happy, thriving relationships. Now, of course, that's what I talk about on this podcast all the time. That's what my book is about. You can go to my website and get my free ebook, The 5 Components of Love, to start building healthy relationships. But one thing I'll talk about here today is that you may have to take a really hard look at the relationships in your life. Which ones are working and which ones are not. And if a relationship is working for you, lean into that. Spend your time there. Appreciate that relationship. Nurture that relationship. And let that relationship be a solid point in your life. And if a relationship's not working, don't just let it languish. Address that. How do you make that relationship better? Deal with the issues. Or if that person is not willing to deal with the issues, there may need to be some distance there. There may need to be some boundaries set. It's really common for us to put all our time into relationships that are not working and actually ignore the ones that are. For instance, let's imagine a person has a very difficult relationship with their mother. This is a very demanding person, a manipulative person, one that has really pulled at the strings for a long time. And then let's imagine the same person who has that very difficult relationship with their mother has a great relationship with a best friend. This is a relationship that really builds them up, a relationship that really fills them with joy, and it's a relationship they really value. Now, in that scenario, it's very common that that person would call their best friend and say, "I'm sorry, I can't have lunch today like we planned. My mom called. I've got to go deal with her. She's freaking out over a bunch of stuff, and I've got to go deal with that. So I'm sorry, we're going to have to reschedule lunch." Can you imagine that happening? You might know people that make those kind of decisions. You might be a person that makes those kind of decisions. It is so easy when we are in these dysfunctional relationships to put our energy there, to deal with the quote-unquote emergencies that take place. And I say that a bit sarcastically because in these dysfunctional relationships, chaos is created in order to create an emergency to get your attention. And very often we feel like, I've got to go deal with this. We may do it with a roll of the eye. We do it with frustration, but we do it. And we actually push away or pull ourselves away from the relationships that nurture us. This is exactly opposite of what we need to do if we're going to live a life of peace. I'm not saying that we have to end the relationship with our difficult mother or that difficult person in our life. but there may need to be some distance there, some boundaries. We may have to say, Mom, I know you're freaking out, but I can't deal with that today because I already have plans. There are things I have to do today. You don't have to tell them it's lunch with your best friend. But don't treat lunch with your best friend as trivial. This is something healthy that you need in your life in order to stay healthy. And so tell your mom, I'll deal with this at X time. I will deal with this tomorrow, or I will deal with this next week. But today, I cannot change my plans. I can't just drop everything to come and deal with this, whatever this might be, whatever crisis has emerged. Now, that's going to be hard. If you are accustomed to dropping everything to deal with that dysfunctional person in your life, if you have gotten into a habit of letting them pull your strings and rush to them, every time they create chaos, it's going to feel really weird at first. You might deal with feelings of guilt. You might deal with feelings that you're abandoning them in their time of need, and they'll probably tell you that you are. This is why counseling is so important if you're in these dysfunctional relationships. Learning how to deal with the guilt and the shaming and the manipulation is very important, and that usually takes counseling. But my point here is to nurture the good relationships. Create some distance and some boundaries in the bad ones, and nurture the good ones. Spend time there. Allow that to build you up, and that will create more sense of peace as you set boundaries in those dysfunctional relationships. And you get help, if you need it, dealing with the guilt and manipulation that comes with those boundaries. And then you lean into the healthy relationships you have in your life. Spend your time there as much as possible. Let that be an encouragement in your life. Those healthy relationships are where you're going to quiet the chaos, dampen down the turmoil, and find a sense of peace. So get good at setting boundaries when there are difficult people, manipulative people, dysfunctional people in your life. Get help to do that. Get counseling to learn how to set those healthy boundaries, and lean into the good relationships in your life. Don't cancel plans with someone who builds you up and go running to someone who tears you down. Spend time in those good, healthy, thriving, nurturing relationships, and you'll have a much stronger sense of peace in your life. And so there you have two very important things that you can bring into your life, two important strategies that can help you find a realistic sense of peace. We're not going to fix all the world's problems. We're not going to make everything okay in life. But at the same time, we do not have to accept a life of chaos and turmoil and constant anxiety. There is a middle ground where there is a realistic sense of peace that addresses problems, but at the same time finds a place of contentment within the struggles. And so give up the word should, give it up, deal with what is, not what you think should be, address the problems, and if they just can't be fixed, then adjust your attitude. I'll say it again. God, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And as you do that, nurture the healthy relationships in your life. Identify the relationships that build you up and lean into them. And those that are tearing you down, set boundaries. Distance yourself a bit. And get help, get counseling to do that. You bring these two things into your life, giving up the word should and leaning into the healthy, thriving relationships you have while setting distance and boundaries for the others. You can find that realistic sense of peace that you need in your life.
Thank you for joining me on the Learning Love podcast. If you're ready to live your life of love, visit my website, markahicks.com, to get my free ebook, The 5 Components of Love. And coming in 2025, my new book from Morgan James Publishing, Learning Love, Building a Life That Matters and Healthy Relationships That Last. pre-orders will be available soon. And remember, love is the answer. Now all we have to do is explore all the questions. Love well, everyone.